once told me there is a city more than just buildings, more than just roads, more than a destination on a map. We look up at the stars dreaming, but what if what burns brightest is not what is up in the clouds, but what surrounds us? It is not easy to explain. It's true. The most beautiful things in the world can sometimes be the things that we see, things we hear, things we touch. But what keeps you alive must be felt with the heart. This is where I began my journey. Jakarta. My Jakarta. Vibrant Jakarta.
I'd like to extend my warmest welcome to you, to the beautiful city we call home, the vibrant Jakarta.
Pernah habis dunia sampai ke ujung batasnya, takkan berhenti hingga hatimu membeku. Kembali berputar arah, pulang padaku.
Saat gagasan pendirian Sarinah dicetuskan pada tahun 1962, Bung Karno ingin banyak membuat mercusuar kebangkitan bangsa Indonesia. Sarinah adalah bentuk perwujudan dari kebangkitan ekonomi kerakyatan menuju modernisasi dan internasionalisme. Dari masa ke masa, Sarinah menjadi saksi dari perkembangan Indonesia. Sarinah melihat bagaimana masyarakat bertumbuh dan beradaptasi melalui segala tantangan yang hadir. Sarinah terus menjadi sentra aktivitas bagi masyarakat untuk memasarkan inovasi dan produk dalam negeri di jantung ibu kota. Transformasi Sarinah adalah sebuah momen yang dinanti-nantikan masyarakat Indonesia. Sebuah pusat perbelanjaan yang didesain untuk memberikan ruang bagi produk dalam negeri yang telah dikurasi. Pemugaran gedungnya tetap menjaga kelestarian aspek cagar budayanya Namun, interior, fasilitas, dan pengalaman berbelanja akan disesuaikan dengan perilaku konsumen masa kini dan masa depan. Sarinah diharapkan menjadi destinasi wajib kunjung bagi wisatawan dalam dan luar negeri. Ruang rumah Sarinah terbagi menjadi 8 buah segmen lantai. Masing-masing ruang tersebut kami beri nama antara lain Pasar Nusantara, Pusaka, Untayan, Kreasi, Hayat, House of Sarinah, Cakrawala, dan Tanah Nusa. Melalui konsep community mall, Sarinah memberikan ruang publik yang memiliki elemen historical, urban linkages, urban forest, serta urban living. Kami ingin mengajak Anda untuk menjadi bagian dari semangat baru Sarinah. Semangat yang diwariskan oleh para pendiri bangsa untuk bisa menjadikan Indonesia menjadi salah satu sentral ekonomi dunia. Bersama, mari kita tunjukkan kekayaan karya Nusantara kepada dunia. Sarinah, panggung karya Indonesia.
Menurut saya, brand lokal merupakan tanggung jawab semua pihak.
Saat ini banyak banget brand lokal yang keren-keren. Komunitas kreatif dan tempat-tempat kreatif juga terus berkembang.
Belakangan ini pergerakan dari brand lokal menunjukkan atau menghadirkan tren yang sangat positif pada kecintaan dan kebanggaan terhadap penggunaan produk-produk dalam negeri.
Nama saya David Irianto, salah satu pengurus dari JCCF. Selama beberapa tahun kebelakang, dalam peran saya sebagai kurator untuk berbagai acara konferensi kreatif di Indonesia, saya melihat ledakan yang luar biasa dari antusiasme anak muda dalam membuat brand-brand lokal.
Saya Tati Apriliana, pegiat dan pengembang jenama lokal. Sarinah adalah nama pengasuh Bapak bangsa kita, Bung Karno.
Sejak awal didirikannya di tahun 62 oleh Bung Karno, Sarinah telah dijadikan sebagai sarana dan wadah bagi produk lokal Indonesia.
Dan dia akan menjadi semacam game changer bagi semua pelaku-pelaku kreatif lokal, para pelaku kultural lokal, para pelaku brand-brand lokal keren yang akan menjadi pendorong utama dari ekonomi retail Nusantara.
Halo, saya Vicky Satari, Dewan Pengawas dari Jakarta Creative City Forum.
Om Swastiastu, Tiang Komang Winawahyudi dari Bali. Saya seorang creative trainer dan founder dari Tualen & Co. bersama ICCN dan JCCF.
Halo, saya Laura Bangun Prinsu. Saya juga pelaku ekonomi kreatif di subsektor penerbitan. Saya menyambut baik hadirnya wajah baru Sarinah yang mengedepankan dan membantu memajukan lokal-lokal brand di Indonesia.
Dan semoga juga Sarinah bisa menjadi etalase bagi wajah dan representasi produk lokal di mata dunia.
Saya Aldi, Deputi Bidang Regulasi dan Kebijakan Jakarta Creative City Forum atau JCCF. Harapan saya, Sarinah bisa menjadi showcase untuk lokal brand Indonesia, para lokal heroes Indonesia untuk menunjukkan kualitas dan kapabilitas mereka.
Semoga kerjasama Sarinah dengan Jakarta Creative City Forum atau JCCF bisa menjadi inisiasi awal dari terciptanya platform yang berkelanjutan.
Saya Dipa Sitepu sebagai pengurus pemasaran dan komunikasi publik di JCCF. Semoga melalui Sarinah dan Jakarta Creative City Forum lebih banyak lagi lokal brand Indonesia mendapat kepercayaan sebagai brand yang berkualitas dan itu buatan Indonesia.
Saya Raditya Susilo, founding partner dari PT Arab Design International dan juga wakil direktur inkubator bisnis dari Jakarta Creative City Forum. Saya sangat bersemangat dengan misi Sarinah untuk menjadi etalase prominent bagi local brand kebanggaan kita semua.
Halo, nama saya Leonardo Sabrata. Saya sekarang sedang menjabat menjadi Direktur Utama Smesco Indonesia dan juga komisaris di Sarinah. Tentunya saya punya harapan yang besar ya terhadap peran Sarinah dan juga untuk memajukan local brands di Indonesia.
Saya menyambut baik kerjasama antara JCCF dengan Sarinah dalam brand local movement. Mudah-mudahan hal ini bisa menggairahkan industri kreatif sekaligus membuat kehidupan kita lebih berbudaya dan berkarakter Indonesia.
Saya berharap bisa JCCF dan Sarinah dapat berkolaborasi sangat erat ke depannya. Panjang umur kolaborasi, bagi dua negeri kami berkolaborasi.
Ke Sarinah bareng keluarga.
Cakep.
Banyak produk lokal yang juara. Yuk langsung aja datang belanja, dukung UMKM biar makin merajat.
morning, good afternoon. Hi, welcome to Sarina Jakarta Content Week 2021. Together again, sponsored by Brimo and DKI Jakarta Tourism and Creative Economy Agency. This event is organized by Yayasan 17.000 Pulau Imaji and Frankfurter Buchmesse. In this very special occasion, we want to congratulate Jakarta on being appointed as Literature City by UNESCO. Yahoo! While publishing industry plays an important role in the developing and disseminating literature and authors, diverse ideas, and a more egalitarian global culture, it is especially the independent publisher who push these developments. The pandemic and political developments are challenging this role. Now, we would like to discuss around the crossing boundaries, challenges for independent publishers from around the world, and today we will be talking about it with some founders and directors of independent publishing companies. I would like to introduce myself first to you. I am Sartika Dian Nuraini from Borobudur Agency, Indonesia, and I will be moderating this talk. Yes, from Indonesia, we have Mr. Roni Agustinus, Margin Kiri, Tangerang Selatan, Indonesia. Roni Agustinus is the founder and chief editor of Margin Kiri Publisher. He is the vice coordinator of English Language Network in the International Alliance of Independent Publishers and also a member of International Union of Left Publishers. Hello, Mas Roni. How are you? Long time no see.
Yeah, hello Dian. Hello everyone.
Yeah. So we have here also with us from Germany, Mr. Stefan Weidel from Weidel Verlag, Germany. Stefan Weidel founded his own publishing house in 1993 and has published 200 titles so far in the fields of literature and the arts. Stefan and Weidel Verlag received many awards. For instance, the Kurt Wolf Prize in 2005, the German Publishers Award in 2019 and 2020, and from 2017 until 2015, he was also the chairman of the Kurt Wolf Stiftung, which is the Association of German Independent Publishers. Stefan also works as translator and has translated many novels from the English and French into German. Yeah, there are a lot of translated works here as listed, D.H. Lawrence, and yeah, big names like Carl Nixon and also Anthony Burgess. Let me greet him. Hello, Mr. Stefan. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. Fine. Thanks very much for the generous introduction.
Yes. And the third panelist, we have here also with us Miss Susie Nicklin from Indigo Press, London, UK. Susie Nicklin is the CEO of the Mild Group, London, founder and commissioning editor of the Indigo Press. The Mild Group is a consortium of literary companies including the Indigo Press, an events program, and the Mars Agency. Susie Nicklin began her career at the Botley Hat Publishers and co-founded foreign rights specialist, the Mars Agency, in 1993. She was director of English PAN from 2002 until 2005 and inaugurated its translation program, now PAN Translate. She was director of literature at the British Council from 2005 until 2013. Creating international literary partnerships and events. From 2015 until 2019, she was the owner of the award-winning independent bookshop Dulwich Books, and she produced and directed 10 literary festivals in that time. She founded the Indigo Press in 2018. Hello, Miss Susie. How are you?
Oh, hi. Greetings from London.
Yeah, well, those are our speakers of today event. Once again, a big welcome to you and thank you for sharing your experiences, knowledge, and views with us today. Now, let me begin this session. In the last few years, Indonesia is having fun producing many books handled and done by individuals or collective creative minds across Indonesia. And we know that a lot of books are popping up now. The titles are also increasingly varied with goods and quality of prints that cannot be underestimated. But is it true that the published titles in 2021 were only 50% of the number of titles in 2019? So we're going to start with the question, Mr. Ronnie. You are one of the leading independent publishers in Indonesia now, and one of the shiniest. Please tell us a bit about your company and what is the role of independent publishers in the publishing world nowadays, in general. Yeah,
Yeah,
time is yours. Mm-hmm.
thank you, Dian. As you know, we Indonesia as a nation has lived its dark past in the era of dictatorship, and after 1998 we began the democratic transition, and so many publisher born at that time, heralding a new era of more free freedom of publishing, freedom of voice, freedom of opinions, and Margin Kiri is also a part of that. Maybe a little bit late, not really in the 1998. We were born in 2005 with a mission to publish books that were not allowed before, to give enrichment to our society with more progressive ideas, more progressive literature. And as a leftist publisher, of course, we publish leftist texts, which really wasn't allowed during dictatorship era. But we also publish fiction, humanities, and so on. We also born from the specific context that many publishers that were began publishing at that time didn't operate as what can I say? They operate like I wouldn't say illegally, but they publish translation without proper translation rights, without copyrights and everything. So my publishing house was born during the same area as those publishers, but we operate quite differently. I think in the group of independent publisher, we can say that we are the one who initiate the proper publishing procedure with proper translation rights and everything. And luckily for us, that trend was beginning to get traction maybe, and now many independent publisher follow our step. Oh, this is the right way to publish book, not like the other the younger generation of publishing of publisher began to recognize the importance of rights, the importance of doing things properly while keeping their idealism alive. So yeah, that's a little background of my publishing house.
I see. And I would like to also address this same question with two other speakers today. Please, Mr. Stefan, would you please introduce your publishing company right now?
Our publishing house was founded back in 1994, and we started first by publishing mainly books from the German Jewish emigration time between 1933 and 45. Many writers had to leave the country because they were Jewish or they were politically against Hitler. So we found a lot of these, not a lot, but many of these writers still alive. So we started to publish their works, like Frederick Hollander, for example, the film composer of The Blue Angel, and other people like that, who changed the language, who became British or American writers. And so we retranslated some of this. And then we also found a lot of interesting books from the 1920s, 20s and 30s in Germany. And we republished those and also unpublished manuscripts. And we did that for quite some time. And we did a few books on the composer Gustav Mahler. And after that, we started to find out about literatures that come from countries that are not so well known in Germany. The literature is not so well known. So we started to work with the Frankfurt Book Fair since a lot of years now, and always tried to be part of the guest of honor countries. That's how we came about to publish a Indonesian book by Lela Khudori Pulang, and got to know the John McLean and got to know a lot of Indonesian literature which we read and liked, but we have not continued to publish Indonesian literature so far again. We both are, my wife and I, we run the publishing house. We are both big readers of Pramudia Anantatur, one of the greatest writers of the 20th century, probably anyway. And yeah, so we still try to find works that haven't been published in Germany yet, and many of those still deal with the subject of exile, which is basically the basis of our publishing, is people who had to flee their country, who can't live in the country that they were born in and they started their lives in. So we have followed that subject through many different cultures, like from Syria. We have published 2 Syrian authors who could not stay in their country. And of course, Pulang is also a book about exile, because the people in the book, they have to emigrate to Paris and start a restaurant there, which is still in existence, by the way. And so this is what we're doing. Like, yeah, we always travel to the countries that we translate works from and visit them and try to get into the literature of these and culture of these countries, of course, as well. At the moment, we have made 2 books by writer from Africa, from Togo, Idem Abomey. He writes in French. He lives in Canada. Canada was the guest of honor country during the last 2 years already. And so we translated I translated them from the French, 2 of his novels, and also somebody who had to flee his country and who lives in Canada now. So this is what we're doing in short. I can extend.
Yeah, very nice. And how about you, Miss Susie? Please could you tell me or tell us all about your publishing company?
Well, the first thing I would like to say is thank you to everybody for conducting this conversation in English. I don't speak Indonesian, I don't speak German, and one of the things which the British did as part of their colonial past was to export their language all over the world. And so I'm very grateful because it's the only, I could do this in French, but I couldn't do this in any other language apart from French or English. So thank you. When I wanted to set up a publishing house, this business of colonialism was very much in my mind. As you know, from my previous career, all I've ever done is work with books in the world. And I've given a lot of speeches on various platforms about the role of the books play in different countries. I got very interested in the dye which is indigo, some time ago, seeing exhibitions in Japan and in Nîmes in the south of France. And indigo is a dye which was originally harvested by slaves and sold at great profit by colonizers. But then in the 19th century, a Swiss scientist, chemist, discovered a synthetic way of producing indigo, which completely changed the production, and it utterly democratized the process. And I'm wearing deliberately a pair of blue jeans today. It became the most important dye for blue jeans all over the world. So it became an absolutely democratic dye. Now, of course, we know that these synthetic dyes are creating great environmental damage. And all over the world, there are fascinating and amazing people devoting themselves to creating new sources of indigo, which will not create environmental degradation. So it felt to me that was a very, very appropriate name for what I'm trying to do with my publishing house. So we have 3 main goals, I think. We want to publish books which are feminist, which are internationalist, and which really strive to fight for social justice. So I think it's very interesting, Claudia, that you've got such a great group of publishers together for whom our pasts, whether dictatorship or colonization, have played such an important role in what it is that we're trying to do now for the audiences that we're trying to reach. So I publish fiction. I also publish a Syrian refugee, for example. I publish nonfiction, and I publish a short polemic essay series called Mood Indigo, which is where I invite authors to really take on one particular subject. And we produce a very beautiful pocketbook edition that people can carry around. So we have got 25 books under contract so far. We've got a nice program planned for 22, and we're just finalizing the program for 23. I'm much newer than any of my colleagues here, so I've got a lot to learn from you. But what we're finding is that through using social media and new technology, we're putting together an audience of young people who are very, very passionate about these subjects. We publish books on the environment. We've got at least 2 more authors at COP at the moment. And these issues, social justice, feminism, and internationalism, really matter to the astonishing generation, which is aged between about, I would say, 15 and 30. So I'm really proud to publish them and publish for them.
Yeah, very nice. And I would like to also ask to make our discussion today colorful. I would like to know the details of the startup that you already done, maybe the whole time, or right now become your full-time job. And how do you build a list, and how you find a niche, and how do you choose the title? Maybe this question applied for Mr. Ronnie Agustinus first.
Yeah, at first okay, I will be back. The original founder of this publisher has been reduced to one, only me. Yeah, my publisher was founded by 6 people. We are at that time not full time in the publishing. There are NGO activists. There are professor in college, and we don't have any background in publishing, but we committed to publish what we think important to our society. In the course of that, one by one, we can do this part time. If we want to be serious, we must we must do it full time and seriously, and not many of us can committed their time to this effort. So yeah, finally it's just only me and my friend Robbie who devoted our full time to this, and now it's only me. We base our choice of selection at first fully translation, because we are no one, we cannot get any local authors that will place trust in our endeavor. So at first we built our reputation through translation. We put so much care in our translation, so people will know that our book is done really good, and we also down our translation with a commitment from their original language that many Indonesian publishers at that time make a common practice to do translation from a second or third language, even like French book translated from their English edition. But we make commitment to do our translation from the original language, and that's quite new too at that time. After we build our reputation, it's more easier for us to get a local author. And yeah, we also browse university library looking for dissertation that hasn't been published, that can be turned into books that can be read widely. And yeah, that's how we look for our authors at that time. Now, of course, it's much easier. We get submission almost every day, and we have a hard time to pick one and select.
Okay, thank you so much. The information is personal as well, yeah, because you already mentioned that it is for the first time you will build your reputation first by translating the foreign titles, and then after that you you kind of searching new talents or new writers from Indonesia that has a good research. And then I would like to ask Mr. Stefan as well, how do you find niche and how you choose your titles?
Well, as I said, my niche was found very early when I committed on publishing books from the 1920s and 1930s. So that was something that back then we were just about the only ones who did that in Germany at all, who took care of authors that were long forgotten. Because as you know, the thing in Germany was after the war, there was the group 47, which it was called. It was the post-war writers in Germany who tried to establish a new tradition. They didn't have a lot of respect. Well, they did have respect, of course, for their predecessors, but again, they tried to corner the market a little bit for themselves and not letting people in who came from the other countries, who came back from exile. There were a lot of authors who actually wanted to come back after the war to Germany, but first of all, they didn't have the money, and then second of all, they were not invited back to Germany. And so the exile literature kept on going after 1945 for quite some time. So we had a lot of fishing ground to find books for that purpose. And then since we had established us in that field, just like Ronnie has, once you are established, you get submissions all the time. We also got a lot of them, but we started to publish also contemporary German authors. Like everybody wants that, of course, because we thought we find authors who have something to say and who have an important voice and so forth. But then we realized that we were too small to do that. In Germany, if you want to be a successful author, you have to be in a big publishing house. Otherwise, you can't do that, because in Germany, the German book market works in a way that authors travel and do readings and do press meetings and stuff like that. So they have a whole itinerary that has to be funneled. And this is something that we just could not manage because we didn't have the manpower to do that. And therefore, after a few rather unsuccessful years and a lot of disappointments also for the authors, we quit that completely and then said, let's do something that we know how to do, meaning doing books that other people would overlook or not find. So that's how we got into the international market, and that's how we got into the Frankfurt Book Fair thing and so forth. And now we do, now our program is always full. We get more, we find more interesting literature than we can publish. At the moment, I have found a very good bookstore in Germany, in Berlin, a bookstore specializing in African literature, which of course is great to have a bookstore like that. And so I visit them all the time and buy books there. And I'm very much into African culture also, because I love African music and so forth. And I think that there are very important voices coming from there now. And you always have to have your ear on the market. You have to have your ear on the literature of the world. Where is something coming from that is new and that gets us somewhere? Like Susie said, the colonial question is a very important question, because in Germany we also had that. I mean, I just read a book by Abdul Razak Gurnah, the now Nobel laureate, his book Afterlives, which deals with the German colonialism in East Africa and Tanzania, to be precise. And this is something that we don't have a lot of literature about in Germany at all. So this is a thing that I would like to look deeper into.
Okay. How about you, Miss Susie? How do you find niche, and how to build a list, and also how to choose your title?
Well, obviously, I'm much newer than either of my colleagues, but I quite well known within certainly within Britain and within the international markets as well. So I was also at the Frankfurt Book Fair last month, and my inbox at the moment is overflowing with submissions after that trip. I am lucky enough to be able to really choose books that speak to me. So, for example, I have acquired the world English rights to a book called Annette ein Heldenepos, which won the German Book Prize last year. It's an epic poem. You know, this is not a shoe-in for the for the British market. The author is German but lives in France. She writes her books in German and French simultaneously. It's been sold in 13 languages. I got the English translation in this week. It's absolutely beautiful, done by an American woman, Tess Lewis, who reads both French and German. And what absolutely appealed to me was that it was this extraordinary, strong woman. It's a story of resistance. I mean, it's a story of resistance in France, in Algeria, in Switzerland, and back in France again. So I absolutely picked books which speak to me personally. I have a very good sense of humor, so I also publish a couple of funny books. I published a book of cartoons by a brilliant young feminist a couple of months ago, and I published a book of short stories earlier this year, which were about laughter and love and sex and drugs and fun, and it was really the perfect thing to be working on during lockdown. It was like one day parties will happen again and life is going to be like this. I would say that I have a strong ethical code. So most of the books you'll find on my list, more or less, that will be reflected. But above all, I publish authors who can't say I'm not interested in politics. In other words, if you say I'm not interested in politics, that shows that your life has been relatively straightforward, you know, relatively unaffected by the exterior circumstances into which you were born, and therefore makes you very privileged. So yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing for me. My motto is, it is not a human right not to think.
Yeah, very interesting.
That's what connects all of my writers.
Okay. And do you publish controversial titles, or just go with what you like and think is right or has a market? Miss Susie.
Miss Susie, I don't think I would ever publish a book because I thought it was going to be controversial. I mean, I wouldn't do it just to provoke, but I did publish a book where it was a very important subject. I don't really want to say much more because I have a very small list, so I don't want you to be able to identify it. But it was very important to the author that it be published, and it could have been potentially controversial. It wasn't. So I wouldn't shy away from it, but I wouldn't do it for the shock value, you know, let's publish this and people will talk about it kind of thing.
Okay. And for you, Mas Roni, how do you project your sales? Is it hard for independent publishers to be quoted or to get prime positions in the bookstores or selling outlets? And how is that for you? How do you manage that?
Yeah, I think we must consider Indonesian book market that is very small comparing to our population. If I negotiate translation, it's always like how many copies do you print, and we'll say 1,000, and people was always Indonesia is millions of why you print only 1,000, but that's the reality. So yeah, and 1,000 is, I think it's before the era of social media. I think it's only cover only big cities on Java. Luckily we were very helped by the existence of social media. we can now spread our books directly to readers from many parts of Indonesia without having to be in big bookstores. And maybe I will give a little bit context here, but maybe Stephen and Susie don't know that there's a large chain bookstore in Indonesia that was owned by the biggest publisher also, and so it's practically people in Indonesia, when they talk about bookstores, they usually refer to this, the only one big bookstore. And for so many years it has not been challenged by any kind of bookstore, because it's just too large, needs so many capital to build it, capital and time, of course, to build it like that. But for the last 10 years, we see, along with the social media, we see independent bookstore flourish everywhere in Indonesia. They can promote their sale from with social media in the marketplace and online marketplace and so we don't need to rely on this big bookstore. And actually from 4 years already, we don't sell in that big bookstore. We already sell in indie bookstore and marketplace, and it's actually good. And with the pandemic, it's proven to be the right way, because when those big bookstore in the malls close down, we still can make sales through the independent bookstores.
I see. And how about you, Mr. Weidel? How do you project your sales, and how do you build your readers, community of readers in Germany?
We also use the social media, of course. I'm responsible for Facebook, and my wife does Instagram. So we have quite a strong following there. Not so many people, but we do, and a lot of book dealers are following us, so they get the news about our new projects, about our new books. In Germany, we have one thing that hardly any other country has, except for France and Spain. We have a fixed price system in Germany, meaning that a book can only be sold, a new book can only be sold to a certain price that is being made by the publisher. Like if I make a book for, let's say, 20 euros, it can only be sold for 20 euros wherever. Bookstores, online, whatever, it's always the same price, which of course protects us quite a bit as small publishing houses, because otherwise, if we would have to give reductions to big book dealers like the chain book dealer in Indonesia, I know that it's very hard to deal with them because they demand so much reduction on the price. That is something that we don't have to deal with. We have to also deal with the big book dealing, the chain stores, because they're not very fond of independent publishers, because they don't think they make money with them on them. So they hardly have us in their stores, because in their stores you have to pay for the presentation of the book on the table and near the entrance and stuff like that. So this is all not for nothing. So we don't do that. We also don't do that for ethical reasons, because we think it's wrong. But then we also have a lot of independent bookstores. We have about 5,000 bookstores in Germany, which is, I think, more than any other country in the world. And we try to make an axis between the independent publishers and the independent bookstores. Like the foundation that I used to run, the Kurt Wolf Foundation, we helped to set up a prize for independent bookstores together with the cultural minister of Germany. So now the independent bookstores can apply for a prize of between 7,000 and 25,000 euros per year. And in the jury is always manned by at least 1 or 2 independent publishers. And also the application form has, you have to say that you have independent publishing books in your bookstore, otherwise you can't apply. So this is helping quite a bit to create a community between independent publishers and independent bookstores, and to help each other against the big online communities like Amazon and also the chain stores in Germany. And I hope that this is going to continue quite a bit, because it during the Corona epidemic, which is far from over yet, we saw that the independent bookstores made more profits than the years before, whereas the chain bookstores, because they don't have customers that come by all the time and get a relationship to the book dealer, they made losses. So this was quite an incentive for the independent bookstores to say, well, hello, we are well liked, we have our customers love us. There were a lot of customers on bookstores that just sent in money to help them to overcome the crisis. So there was a lot of solidarity, which was really touching at times. And I hope that this continues.
Wow, solidarity is the key in the pandemic, yeah? And how about you, Miss Susie? How do you project your sales? I mean, how do you sell your titles apparently, and how is it snowballing at the end?
So I have to give you a little bit of history here. We, as Stefan said, we had the netbook agreement here in the UK, and that was abolished under the rule of Margaret Thatcher. And at the beginning, for a lot of publishers, especially big commercial publishers, it wasn't terrible, because it meant that supermarkets started stocking paperbacks in vast quantities. And that actually, at the start, meant there was a really different outlet for authors to reach readers and reach them in a relatively democratic space as well. I mean, bookshops are very intimidating to most British people. And so it meant there's a book, I can just pop it in my trolley. So that worked. But then obviously Bezos spotted the chink in the armor, and he started off in the UK by selling books, as we know, and he is a genius, and he realized the most important thing in the world at the moment is data. And so he has taken a very deliberate decision to sell books at a loss in order to get the data of the kind of people who buy books. So when I ran an independent bookstore, every single day somebody would come in and say to me, hang on a minute, this biography of Michelle Obama, you're selling it at £25, but Sainsbury's down the road is selling it at £9.50. Why should I buy it from you? And I kept having to say, because I can tell you that les grandes surfaces, that supermarkets and Amazon will deliberately lose money on books to make money on other goods, but we don't sell other goods. We only sell books. We pay our staff the proper wages. We pay all of our taxes. We pay business rates. And I can only cover my costs by selling you the book at the price on the cover. So sadly, although we still have about 850, 900 independent bookshops in the UK, half of them went very quickly because Amazon, by saying they would compete on price, actually then attracted all of the customers. That's what they really wanted, was this data. So I'm sorry to give you that history, but the situation therefore now is that if a book is out of stock on Amazon, people just assume it's out of stock. They don't go anywhere else. They don't go to the Guardian bookshop. They don't go to Waterstones.com. They don't go to my website. I can personally post you a book and you'll get it tomorrow. I'll bring it to you if you're in London. I've got a great website, but people don't go there. They just think, oh, it's not in stock on Amazon. Amazon has a lot of supply chain issues at the moment. They've got 41 hubs in the UK. A book could be delivered to one hub, be not goods in properly, so the algorithm will declare that it's out of stock. So really, the challenges faced by independent publishers in the UK are massive. We have a small but brilliant band of indie booksellers. It was very good for me when I worked as a bookseller. I got friendly with lots of them. They're passionate, they're super hardworking, super intelligent, very committed. They provide a hub for the whole community. And we are very grateful for the relationships that we have with indie publishers in the UK. We have pretty much only one chain, which is Waterstones. And if Waterstones don't get behind a book, that's it. If they do, they can sell thousands and thousands, but if they don't, that's a big chunk of sales that doesn't happen. So we really do rely on word of mouth. We rely on really developing the branding, and we absolutely rely on readers saying to each other, if you like this book from the Indigo Press, you're going to love this book from the Indigo Press. That's very important for us. Basically, publishing and bookselling in the UK is appallingly badly paid, and that is almost a direct result of Amazon. So I've got books, I'm in my study here, I've got books which I bought 20 years ago. The price is the same as it is now. There's been no inflation in that time. If you then think that there's very deep discounts going on at Amazon, the money that comes in from selling books at these cheap prices is not enough to sustain a proper professional structure. So I'm very envious of my German colleagues. I lived in Berlin for 3 months last year, and I visited lots and lots of booksellers, and it's a completely different atmosphere. And I take my hat off to our independent booksellers who just keep going. It's very tiring. It's very, very draining. You need to put a lot of emotional energy and labor into the work. You couldn't just work normal hours. So for me, social media, word of mouth is very important. We spend a lot of money making the books beautiful, which means that usually we sell a lot through museums, galleries, theatre bookshops. Obviously, those were all closed during the pandemic. And we also tend to sell a lot of books at events because we work with authors who are very impressive in person. And so if we have an author at an event, they will usually sell a lot of copies because they're very interesting to listen to. And of course, that all went during the pandemic as well. So I would say that the post-pandemic world for me is very different to the pre-pandemic world. And we are navigating it. And I think there will be some gains. I think that virtual events and hybrid events are here to stay. But there have definitely been some losses for us, and many independent booksellers I know have lost market share to Amazon during that time.
Okay, and how about you, Mas Roni? My question would be in general, looking at the helicopter view, what is it to be done for improving the role of growth for independent publishers in global publishing market, especially in time like this, when in the US Penguin Random House attempts to buy yet another of the big ones, Simon and Schuster, of which we do not know whether it will actually come through. You can also tell us a bit about your hope, breakthrough, and strategies to get your goals visible to reach.
Yeah, I cannot say on the global scale. It's I think it's too big for me. Of course, this conglomeration trend is really worrisome from the standpoint of market and also from the standpoint of diversity of voices. But we have our own homeworks in Indonesia, and that's also quite a lot and hard.
Hello?
Hello? Hello? Hello, Dian?
Yeah?
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, sorry, my connection is unstable. Yeah,
Okay.
please continue.
Yes, I mean to say that our homework in national level is quite big too. So I think we must. I will focus on that. It's really great at the time like this we see some solidarity as Stephen told us before, and we know it happened too in Indonesia. There are when government didn't provide us independent publisher and book workers with anything help or subsidy, we see that there's program like Teman Bantu Teman, Friends Help Friends, that from our reader to book industry worker that quite help us. So I think we must strengthen this solidarity, but also not only in the form of solidarity. We must make a union of independent publisher and on union of independent bookseller that we still haven't to deal with the market situation and to distribute better in many parts of Indonesia. We know that our biggest problem is how big Indonesia is with very weak transportation infrastructure in many areas. So books is really hard to getting to that place, and that's what we must overcome by building networks of booksellers across Indonesia.
I see. And do you actually have networks of indie publishers in Indonesia, and what kind of activities do you do in attention visibility?
No, not yet. I try before the pandemic. I try to make to connect this publisher friends. I went to some cities to talk about them, but we have we still don't have common grounds to make union at national level. I think it's better to make them at city or provincial province level first. It's also makes more sense because they knew what their problem at local level.
So okay. And I will go to Miss Susie and also Mr. Stephen. What is it to be done for improving the role of growth for independent publishers in global publishing market, especially in times like this, when in the US Penguin Random also attempts to buy yet another big ones, Simon and Schuster, and I will go with Miss Susie first.
Okay, well, first of all, let's be clear that the ultimate owner of Penguin Random House is a family business located in a very small village in Germany, or town, Gütersloh. So, we're talking here about a massive German conglomerate, not an American conglomerate, ultimately. And I think that's an important point about the world, is that Hachette is French, then there's Holtzbrink, then there's Bonniers, there are many big publishing groups which are owned outside the country, in which the biggest divisions are located. I'm not against corporate publishing. I think there's pros to corporate publishing. I think I'm old. I started working in 1985 in publishing, where it suddenly started to professionalize in the UK. And I think that there's a lot of professionalism has been brought to the business through the corporates, but they're answerable to their shareholders. That's the most important thing. And when you work within a corporate environment, very quickly you realize that most of the conversation is about the corporate environment. You know, people want to get promoted, they don't want to be demoted, they want to be noticed. And if you go out for a drink with people, I find, from big corporate publishers, after the first drink, it all turns to, oh, did you hear what she did the other day? Whereas if you go out for a drink with me, I'll talk to you about my writers, you know, that it will all be about them and what I'm trying to achieve for literature and for writing and the specific authors that I publish. I'm answerable to me. So, and I do have a couple of other shareholders, but ultimately, you know, I can't be swayed by worries about the value of the share price going up and down. However, publishing is a business. Let's be clear, it's not romantic. It's a manufacturing industry. I make product and I must sell it. And if I don't sell it, I'll go out of business. And if I go out of business, that's really bad for the authors. So my primary duty is to stay in business, to protect my writers and my staff, obviously. That's very, very important. I don't really like romanticized ideas about what the publishing industry is somehow. It's like, so if you want to work in a big corporate environment, go work in a corporate environment. If you want to be an entrepreneur, be an entrepreneur. Where it becomes delicate, I think, is this crossover point between taking risks, artistic and political risks. So, for example, something I really, really admired during the Salman Rushdie case was when the German publishers, many of them came together, didn't they? And they formed an imprint to publish the Satanic Verses so that no one German publisher was the publisher of that book, for example. So I think we need to separate out political risk, artistic risk, business risk, and benefit in all those different pots as well. But as I say, nobody I know who works in publishing at any level does it for the money. They all do it because they believe in literature and art. So I think in our industry, it's a slightly false dichotomy to be looking at mergers, takeovers, blah, 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 personally.
Mr. Stefan? Yeah, the same question goes to you.
As Monty Python would say, I couldn't agree more. No, that's true. Everything that Susie says is the same here. I mean, we don't work with the big publishers. In Germany, we also see that due to the concentration within the publishing field and with the concentration on bestsellers, which is getting more and more, many authors, many writers don't get their contract renewed. So some writers who were once successful but not that successful anymore, they come to the small independent publishers because they're not being taken on by the big conglomerates because they don't see the profit in them, because as Susie said, the profit for the shareholder is just about everything that's interesting for them. So this is something that gives us new chances to work with writers that would not have come to a small publishing house before. And again, since we do have this association of small independent publishers in Germany, the Kurt Wolf Foundation, named after Kurt Wolf, who was the most important German publisher in the 20th century. He was the publisher of Franz Kafka, for example. And we adopted his name because he went into exile. He was against Hitler, so he had to go to the US. Later on, founded Pantheon Books there. And we have a common catalog that we bring out every year, which has one page for nearly all of the participants in the Kurt Wolf Foundation. We have now about 110 publishing houses that are in the catalog. So we give that to the book dealers and to the audience for free. It's been funded by the German Ministry for Culture, which is great. I don't think that is the fact is happening in any other country in this world. So this is something that helps us a lot because people go to the bookstores and they say, well, show me what's new, what is not in the mainstream market, what is not in the big chain stores, and then they get this catalog and they can look at the books that we are doing, and this is helping really a lot. And also we have our get-togethers. We meet twice a year. Most of the publishing houses mostly at the fairs, so we didn't meet for 2 years now because we couldn't. But we have a Facebook group which we use for exchange, a secret Facebook group, of course. And so we talk to each other a lot, and we try to help each other, try to inform each other, keep informed, to try to make common actions against, for example, at the moment, the big German chain stores want more deduction than the maximum of 50%, which is legal in Germany. We work together against that. So there's a lot going on in Germany within the independent publishers, which is really good, and I'm very happy that we have that.
Yeah, we are approaching the time limit, so thank you so much for our speakers today. We're going to have two words as a closing statement from all of you. Please, Mr. Ronnie Agustinus, do you have something in mind?
Not really. I just hope this I think my message is this. I hope this JAK 10 event will have a good impact to independent publishing in Indonesia, promote them more in time like this, that we really need more promotion and more sales to support us.
Yeah, thank you. And Miss Suzy, do you have a closing statement for the event?
Well, as I said, I have worked all of my career in books in the world, and it's a huge pleasure to me to be able to talk about my profession, which I'm very passionate about, with people from other countries. It's something, as Stefan said, I've really missed. And so I would really like to thank the organizers for this opportunity to have this kind of discussion, because we all share such a common and important goal.
Yeah, and you, Mr. Stefan, please.
Well, a special statement for Indonesia. I like the fact very much that the Indonesian group is running the next Documenta in Germany, Ruang Rupa, and they are building a bookstore within the Documenta, which I think is a wonderful statement of Indonesia, how important books are in this world, so that they have to be sold also on the premises of the next Documenta. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now we have come to the end of the session of Sarinah Jakarta Content Week 2021, sponsored by Brimo and DKI Jakarta Tourism and Creative Economy Agency. Thank you so much, speakers, for joining us today, and to the viewers, thank you for your participation. If you enjoyed our session, check out our other session at www.jak10.com. Also follow us on social media at Jak10 for the latest information. Thank you so much. Bye.
Menurut saya, brand lokal merupakan tanggung jawab semua pihak.
Saat ini banyak banget brand lokal yang keren-keren. Komunitas kreatif dan tempat-tempat kreatif juga terus berkembang.
Belakangan ini pergerakan dari brand lokal menunjukkan atau menghadirkan tren yang sangat positif kepada kecintaan dan kebanggaan terhadap penggunaan produk-produk dalam negeri.
Nama saya David Irianto, salah satu pengurus dari JCCF. Selama beberapa tahun ke belakang, dalam peran saya sebagai kurator untuk berbagai acara konferensi kreatif di Indonesia, saya melihat ledakan yang luar biasa dari antusiasme anak muda dalam membuat brand-brand lokal.
Saya Tati Apriliana, pegiat dan pengembang jenama lokal. Sarinah adalah nama pengasuh Bapak bangsa kita, Bung Karno.
Sejak awal didirikannya di tahun 62 oleh Bung Karno, Sarinah telah dijadikan sebagai sarana dan wadah bagi produk lokal Indonesia.
Dan dia akan menjadi semacam game changer bagi semua pelaku-pelaku kreatif lokal, para pelaku kultural lokal, para pelaku brand-brand lokal keren yang akan menjadi pendorong utama dari ekonomi retail Nusantara.
Halo, saya Vicky Satari, Dewan Pengawas dari Jakarta Creative City Forum.
Om Swastiastu, Tiang Komang Winawahyudi dari Bali. Saya seorang creative planner dan founder dari Tualen & Co. bersama ICCN dan JCCF.
Halo, saya Laura Bangun Prinsu. Saya juga pelaku ekonomi kreatif di subsektor penerbitan. Saya menyambut baik hadirnya wajah baru Sarinah yang mengedepankan dan membantu memajukan lokal-lokal brand di Indonesia.
Dan semoga juga Sarinah bisa menjadi etalase bagi wajah dan representasi produk lokal di mata dunia.
Saya Aldi, Deputi Bidang Regulasi dan Kebijakan Jakarta Creative City Forum atau JCCF. Harapan saya, Sarinah bisa menjadi showcase untuk lokal brand Indonesia, para lokal heroes Indonesia untuk menunjukkan kualitas dan kapabilitas mereka.
Semoga kerjasama Sarinah dengan Jakarta Creative City Forum atau JCCF bisa menjadi inisiasi awal dari terciptanya platform yang berkelanjutan.
Saya Dipa Sitepu sebagai pengurus pemasaran dan komunikasi publik di JCCF. Semoga melalui Sarinah dan Jakarta Creative City Forum lebih banyak lagi lokal brand Indonesia mendapat kepercayaan sebagai brand yang berkualitas dan itu buatan Indonesia.
Saya Raditya Susilo, founding partner dari PT Arab Design International dan juga wakil direktur inkubator bisnis dari Jakarta Creative City Forum. Saya sangat bersemangat dengan misi Sarinah untuk menjadi etalase prominent bagi local brand kebanggaan kita semua.
Halo, nama saya Leonardo Sabrata. Saya sekarang sedang menjabat menjadi Direktur Utama Smesco Indonesia dan juga komisaris di Sarinah. Tentunya saya punya harapan yang besar ya terhadap peran Sarinah dan juga untuk memajukan local brands di Indonesia.
Saya menyambut baik kerjasama antara JCCF dengan Sarinah dalam brand local movement. Mudah-mudahan hal ini bisa menggairahkan industri kreatif sekaligus membuat kehidupan kita lebih berbudaya dan berkarakter Indonesia. Saya berharap bisa JCCF dan Sarinah dapat berkolaborasi sangat erat ke depannya. Panjang umur kolaborasi, bagi dua negeri kami berkolaborasi.
Ke Sarinah bareng keluarga.
Cakep.
Banyak produk lokal yang juara. Yuk langsung aja datang belanja, dukung UMKM biar makin merajut.
Saat gagasan pendirian Sarinah dicetuskan pada tahun 1962, Bung Karno ingin banyak membuat mercusuar kebangkitan bangsa Indonesia. Sarinah adalah bentuk perwujudan dari kebangkitan ekonomi kerakyatan menuju modernisasi dan internasionalisme. Dari masa ke masa, Sarinah menjadi saksi dari perkembangan Indonesia. Sarinah melihat bagaimana masyarakat bertumbuh dan beradaptasi melalui segala tantangan yang hadir. Sarinah terus menjadi sentra aktivitas bagi masyarakat untuk memasarkan inovasi dan produk dalam negeri di jantung ibu kota. Transformasi Sarinah adalah sebuah momen yang dinanti-nantikan masyarakat Indonesia. Sebuah pusat perbelanjaan yang didesain untuk memberikan ruang bagi produk dalam negeri yang telah dikurasi. Pemugaran gedungnya tetap menjaga kelestarian aspek cagar budayanya, namun interior, fasilitas, dan pengalaman berbelanja akan disesuaikan dengan perilaku konsumen masa kini dan masa depan. Sarinah diharapkan menjadi destinasi wajib kunjung bagi wisatawan dalam dan luar negeri. Ruang rumah Sarinah terbagi menjadi 8 buah segmen lantai. Masing-masing ruang tersebut kami beri nama antara lain Pasar Nusantara, Pusaka, Untayan, Kreasi, Hayat, House of Sarinah, Cakrawala, dan Tanah Nusa. Melalui konsep community mall, Sarinah memberikan ruang publik yang memiliki elemen historical, urban linkages, urban forest, serta urban living. Kami ingin mengajak Anda untuk menjadi bagian dari semangat baru Sarinah. Semangat yang diwariskan oleh para pendiri bangsa untuk bisa menjadikan Indonesia menjadi salah satu sentral ekonomi dunia. Bersama, mari kita tunjukkan kekayaan karya Nusantara kepada dunia. Sarinah, panggung karya Indonesia.
Tak pernah habis dunia sampai ke ujung batasnya, takkan berhenti hingga hatimu membeku. Kembali berputar arah, pulang padaku.
Someone once told me there is a city more than just buildings, more than just roads, more than a destination on a map. We look up at the stars dreaming, but what if what burns brightest is not what is up in the clouds, but what surrounds us? It is not easy to explain. It's true. The most beautiful things in the world can sometimes be the things that we see, things we hear, things we touch. But what keeps you alive must be felt with the heart. This is where I began my journey. Jakarta. My Jakarta. vibrant Jakarta.
I'd like to extend my warmest welcome to you, to the beautiful city we call home, the vibrant Jakarta.